Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Healthwise and I'm Dr. Tahira Shahid. Let me tell you this one story, I'm sure you must have heard it, about two patients who are, admitted inside a ward, and one of them has his bed facing towards the window, whereas the other one is on the other side, and they're both critically ill patients actually waiting to die. So the one on the other side starts asking the one whose bed is across the window that please tell me, how is it today morning? And every day the man on the side that has the window tells him, oh, it's a bright morning, the birds are chirping, there's this little boy who's playing with a ball, and every new day he has a new thing for him. So this other guy, the one on the other side, starts feeling better and better and better, because every day he's waiting to hear from the other guy that now there's a flower that's blooming, today there's this new bird that had blue wings that was coming and chirping on the windowsill. But what happens is that the disease of the guy in front of the window starts progressing, and one day, unfortunately, he expires. And as soon as he expires and he moves out, the staff comes in, and this guy who was on the other side tells him, can you please move me to that side of the bed? I want to be in front of the window so I can see all that the other patient was seeing all these days. And the nurse does that. And the moment he sees what's outside the window, he sees that it's a blank wall. And he realizes that his friend used to keep him motivated, used to give him hope every day. And it was because of this hope that he actually got better. It's not about what actually awaits you, but how you approach it, how you look at it. And unfortunately, ever since COVID started and ever since the lockdown started and these crazy, rules and restrictions have started, we have forgotten what is hope. We are always, forever talking about disease, about death, about depression. And the worst part is we don't see a tomorrow. We've stopped just believing in tomorrow. So we thought it's extremely essential that even as the festivity starts, it's Eid, we used to celebrate it, and today we're talking about a lockdown extending for it seems to me forever. But then how do we cope with it? How do we cope with this mental stress? How do we get out of this depression? Because COVID can be cured and COVID will be fine and it'll end one fine day, but this mental impact won't. That is why today we have onto our studios a psychiatrist, a doctor who has specialized in psychiatry. He's Dr. Ehsan Naveed. I welcome you to the show, Dr. Ehsan. Looking at you, most people would think that we're doing a program on anti-aging, but it's okay, we're not doing one on anti-aging, we're doing one on the hope of life and on psychiatry. So what will you say about the effect of this, this disease in terms of the mental impact?
Very well said, Tahira, regarding the opening statement of the program that you just mentioned about the boy who was hopeful and he was looking out of the window. Same is how we see towards the current pandemic in the world globally. COVID-19 not only brought a lot of miseries and global stress and economical burdens on us with lockdowns, with schools being shut, but also the fear of contamination, of getting COVID-19 or to spreading it to the others. It really progressed to an extent that unfortunately in Pakistan in the recent year we've got 23 suicide cases who were on the other side of the room of the who were not
Exactly.
looking from the hopeful window. So it has multidimensional aspects when it comes towards our human behavior, our human mind. Initially, Tahira, there are two sorts of behaviors that we saw in the world as far as the Stanford and Harvard courses were concerned that we did in the last year. When initially we got the news that there is a disease and it might come to Pakistan, there were free online resources available. The main two behaviors are the blunting ones and the monitoring ones. Now what happens is that even today the monitoring ones are the ones who would time and again wash their hands, time and again would clean up themselves, time and again give a message to the family and friends not to visit.
Doesn't it almost become like an OCD, an obsessive compulsive
disorder?
So
there's a thin line.
We have somebody actually in our studio who complains of this and who says that in his house, for instance, he's forced to wash his hands almost 100 times, and even the driver goes out in a PPE and comes back and each one is almost submerged in sanitizer, and this obsessive thing has made them paralyzed in this way.
So this is what happened. I mean, we had to see the pre-morbid conditions before what the patient had. I mean, if somebody had COVID-19 and he was having a mental health illness, there was a chance, we were supposed to think that it would rise after COVID-19, and it happened. If somebody had depression or OCD, it really raised up to an extent that it became almost impossible for that gentleman or the lady to live with it. While the other behavior is the blunting behavior. The blunting behavior, so there are pros and cons in the both. The one in the monitoring behavior is, as you as you just mentioned, that he would submerge in the sanitizer, he would time and again wash his hands, check on with the locks and the doors, but his immune system or her immune system would be low because he would be fear.
So
and
on this we're going to take a short break and be back right after the break. Welcome back after the break. Before the break, we were discussing about OCD with Dr. Ehsan Naveed, but not just OCD. You know, there's this sensational journalism that's on these days. When you put on the TV or the radio or anybody, even on the net, all they talk about is, oh, COVID is spreading, COVID is going to catch you, you know, these many people are dying. Can you please tell our viewers that it's not just COVID that kills, it's this mentality that kills even more. People are actually depressed, people are actually going, you know, becoming suicidal, people are actually becoming addicts, and this is going to harm them way more in the longer run than just this disease that can be prevented.
So Tahira, this is what COVID did. I mean, with an excessive fear, with an excessive worry, with an excessive panicky situation of lockdown, locked off, with schools being shut and people being restricted, what happened? People got into fear, and when fear triggered, it's an hypothesis that that biopsychosocial system that we have in our body to be on the optimum and the best healthcare level and at the best of our emotional well-being, it disturbed. And so with the blunting and the monitoring behaviors that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, the monitoring ones were the ones who were obsessional sort of. They were time and again washing up their hands, time and again looking up for their hygiene of the fear of catching COVID-19. There was this pro and con that we saw in the blunting and in the monitoring people in the population. In the monitoring population, the immunity, the basic immunity that basically, so it flattened, it went down. While in the blunting population, these are the ones who do not believe in COVID-19. These are the ones who are like, okay, we're just going to get a simple flu and a cough and we're going to be fine. So in this behavior, we saw that there was a risk of catching COVID-19 twice folds as
of. I think they were recovering as well. They were catching it, but they maybe they're transmitting it more, but they're recovering for sure, because you know, when you're strong inside, so is your immunity strong. And I somehow feel that the first one, the ones who are obsessed with them not catching it, are constantly living in this bubble, right? They've wrapped themselves in a bubble, and for how long can you live in a bubble?
So, but what would they do? I mean, the media tells you to wash your hands.
It's okay to wash your hands, but is it okay to shut yourself away from the world? Is that okay?
Okay, now so here is where the mental health comes in. There has been, I just mentioned that there were like 23 suicide cases, unfortunately.
And 23 that came to your notice. Otherwise, there have been thousands and they're not even recorded, not even displayed on media.
Exactly. And so amongst these 23 suicide cases, there were 7 which were confirmed of COVID-19, but there were 4 who were only suspected of COVID. They did not have any COVID. So this fear system, it really messes up with our immunity. While in this bubble of being in the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that there are 3 to 4 different disorders that have been emerging, other than those which were present in the population, like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Substance abuse. Let's talk about substance misuse. People who had disturbance in their biological cycle, they started using illicit drugs. And so the use of illicit drugs, it rose up in the skies. The other thing which is important to...
and why wouldn't they do drugs? For instance, if they have no parks to go to, if they have, everything is locked down, they can't go anywhere, they can't indulge in any sort of healthy activity, just in fear of catching a disease. So then they derive all this pleasure either from an illicit drug or from the screen, and both of which which are harmful. So don't you think that on a government level, internationally, they should devise a few strategies where they allow outdoor activities? Maybe they can restrict the kind of interaction and, you know, ensure it with SOPs. But the more people are encouraged to go outside in open air, in sunlight, with a good distance, and indulge in sports and exercise, it's going to be more healthy for them.
Tahira, the government must encourage and must start awareness on the mental health and the psychological well-being. I mean, if emotionally somebody is not derailed, if emotionally somebody is fine, he would live in the same room of the same window on the other side, seeing a whiteboard rather than an actual window. I mean, this is what the brain does to us.
Yeah.
I mean, so here's a question to ask. How many programs on the mental health did we do? We've
been doing a lot though.
Yeah, but how many awareness sessions do we have actually on the social media, and what are actually the impacts of all of these systems? So yes, coming to your point, I would agree that there should be an SOP of what do you say, how London did it, how England did it, that they had a small fraction population visiting at one place with
Yes,
SOPs
that's
at
very
one
good.
time.
And I think Australia and New Zealand were really good. All they did was shut their borders so that, you know, no new variants and no new mutants and all that doesn't come, whereas everything else was on. Their schools, their markets, their parks especially was all on and open and still is. But the only thing they've done is they've not allowed other people to come in, and only when there is an outbreak that's very, very severe, that's when they have a lockdown for a few days, right? But then they do have these kind of things where it's, you know, like, there are timings for everything. And when they talk about isolation all the time, man is a social animal, right? We're not used to isolation. We need friends. We need somebody to talk to. So how is that impacting people in the long run, their relationships, their productivity at work, their growth, their evolution as, you know, individuals?
Well, self-distancing, quarantine, lockdown, what does it do?
Make you
on a
crazy?
human, yeah, it makes us lonely.
Yeah.
It makes us lonely. And loneliness, if we talk about loneliness, loneliness really impacts our well-being if we are above 60. I mean, that population which is above 60 has no idea about how to use a cell phone, has, you know, been living in even before the millennials time. These are the ones who are most vulnerable. And imagine somebody who is literate and knows about COVID-19 versus another person who's living in the same home and has no idea about what television is and what COVID-19 is. And this boy or a girl would, you know, just go away from his grandmother and granny. What sort of things are we going to, expect at this moment? So this is what's going on in our reality in this country, in a population of more than 22 crore, that a lot of people, even 90% people, they do not know about what COVID-19 is, and why would basically people go away from us? Even in the villages that we, you know, when the patients come from the villages, half of the population believes that there is a COVID-19, and the other one would believe that it's maybe a conspiracy. So the sort of personality that we had before COVID-19 has impacted in this COVID-19.
Yeah, we've become very judgmental as well. Before we used to judge people on what they wear and what they don't wear, and now it's always like, no, you know, as soon as somebody posts a picture, it's like, where's your mask? Where's your mask? You know, that's all they're after. They are not, you know, they no longer congratulate people on whatever achievement that picture is.
So since Tahira, we're sitting at a social distancing.
No, we are socially distanced. And
the other day I was at another talk show, and everybody started writing that, where is your mask? And I was like, here's my mask, but we are already sitting in a distance.
Yes, we are at a distance. We are vaccinated, and being healthcare workers, being a doctor myself and him a doctor as well, we are almost tested every day because we have to deal with patients as well. And we do realize that our social responsibility of not catching a disease and not spreading it further. But then we have to be very, very careful about this as well, because as you're going to be sitting at home, you need a lot of activity to indulge in, a lot of healthy activity, a lot of good activity. So I would encourage a lot of people to go out into their lawns or their terraces or whatsoever space is available to them. And unfortunately, to those who it's not available, what would you suggest for such people, like people, you know, crammed up in these small houses, or their only outlet on Eid would be going to the garden or park or something like that. Now they have to sit home. So how do they cope with their mental health? What is it that they can do?
Tahira, the basic thing, the first important thing is our sleep. I mean, if we know about what to do and what not to do for our sleep hygiene, that would be the most important thing. We discussed about the illicit drug use. I mean, people who had no idea about how to cope with COVID-19, they got anxious, they got feared, they had to wake up every day in the morning. Like, let's suppose we talk about people who did not have the 1:2 or 1:4 ratio of going to work. So they started taking help of drugs, and what did the drugs do? Number one, they it had tolerance in it, and the other thing was that they were withdrawal effects. So they were locked off, sort of jammed in by using the drug and the illicit drug use.
So you're not referring to only drugs of substance, but you're using all these sleeping aids.
The sleeping aids,
and
yes,
the antidepressants
yes,
and everything else.
It rose to the sky during this COVID-19. I mean, to an extent that now in the pharmacies, even the rural areas, they won't allow any of the drugs over the counter. So the first thing is the sleep hygiene. Now, what are the things that we need to do to have a good sleep, and what are the things we do not need to do for a good sleep if we do not want to get the help of those drugs? We need to talk about those things.
Okay, so what are the things we need to do for a good sleep hygiene, like be in a dark room, be in a room without any noise, and then exercise during the day? What else? Stay away from the screen 1 hour before. What else do we do?
Okay, the other, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other thing is that we need to breathe properly. I mean, if we see somebody who's at a bed in a COVID-19 isolation or an ICU that we see every day, what is that the patient is not doing? It's the breathing thing. We pass the CPAP, we do the AMBU, we take a decision for the ventilator. Why? What for? To make them breathe. So this is the most important thing, that we need to practice the deep breathing exercises. We need to know how to deep breathe in and breathe out. Like, for example, if we have to do a deep breathing exercises, it should be in a series in a day rather than just we do it for once.
So we had this pulmonologist, Dr. Zaman, come over a few days before, and he told us about this deep breathing, where you put it up and you raise your arms up and you breathe in from your mouth forcefully, and then you raise your arms down and you breathe out from your mouth forcefully, and that apparently does help with the breathing. And there's some, there was a yogi trainer, he told us about this another yoga exercise where you close one nostril on the right side and then breathe in from the left one, keep it in there, and then you close your left nostril and then you breathe out from the right nostril. And repeating this like 5 to 10 times a day also relaxes your mind. And along with this, you can take some lavender tea or chamomile tea that relaxes you as well, and engage in some sort of meditation. And he was saying that the sajda that we do during our namaz, it's the best, most relaxing exercise actually, and that kind of induces sleep as well. And then there are a few other things where you take oil in your hand and you can rub the acupuncture points in your palms, and then with those palms you can also rub them on the soles of your feet and put yourself to sleep. But this is all fine, but what if a person cannot sleep because of the insecurity, because of the fear that his children don't have anything to eat, because he cannot go to work anymore and he's not earning, because his business is shut down, because his child is not going to school and he doesn't have fees, and the child cannot even learn, online learning is not a possibility for everybody. So it's not the disease, it's the fear of this financial strain. So what do these people do?
These people, and along with these people, the 50 million population of Pakistan that was already suffering from a psychiatric problem, and was, I mean, since 50s, my family, we've been serving in this field at a very rural area of Pakistan, in the north of Pakistan. It's known as Mansehra. It's still challenging, Tahira, that somebody who has no idea about what are the notions of having a good sleep hygiene, and the other population which had some sort of any psychiatric comorbidity, when they come together, so we would try to engage or treat the patient with regards to the biopsychosocial and cultural and the spiritual model. I mean, this was the spiritual and the cultural model that you were just telling about. So we need to talk about these things a lot. For the people who are distressed, who have, for example, the psychological worries, who do have this chest pain, who do frequently urinate, and they go to doctors and the doctors are like, you're fine, they must go to at least a psychiatrist to get the help of
Right.
having any, God forbid, if they're having any anxiety disorder or not. There are people who in this COVID-19, they had such intense fear that they went to the ICUs and the emergencies time and again of having a panic disorder. And so we need to take help from a psychiatrist at this
That
moment.
is true. And what would be your departing note just as we leave, that Dr. Ehsan Naveed has told us that all we need to do is remove the fear from us. So just say a quick goodbye to our viewers and then we take off.
Okay, so the most important thing would be how to take care about our sleep hygiene. Things we need to do and things we do not need to do. Things we need not to do is do not look at the watch while trying to sleep. Things we need to do is think positive, take long deep breaths. If you feel that you or somebody at your home, they are having low mood or having low lethargy in their body, they're having generalized weakness and excessive fear of catching COVID-19 or spreading COVID-19, please do talk to somebody who experts in the mental health. Please do talk to a psychiatrist and take help. You might save yourself and you might help save another human being's life preciously.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ehsan Naveed, for joining us today. And you heard it from the psychiatrist himself that please remove your fear. Lockdown or not, let's enjoy the spirit of Eid from inside and make the best of it with proper food, proper exercise, proper sleeping, as well as a lot of not social isolation, only physical isolation, but you can always stay in touch with a loved one on your phone, on your screen, whatsoever. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.